Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Mr. Monster, and I am the unofficial Nintendo brand ambassador. Tonight, on the very night that the Switch 2 launches, I've got a few minutes and I'd like to talk to you about game keycards. Because what I've seen has been a lot of people reporting on game keycards, and they've had a little different take than what I've come up with. And I think that there are clues hidden all around that maybe lead the situation to be not as grim as people are really painting it out to be. Now, if you're not a physical collector, it really doesn't have any relevance to you. But as you can see, I like my physical games. And because I like my physical games, the game key cards don't really do anything for me. They're just a piece of plastic that will still have me downloading the entire game, and I guess I just don't see the point in it. I would rather just download them digitally if I'm going to do that anyway. Now, there are a few small benefits that you get from that, such as being able to trade it in and other people could download it later, and certainly we've had the equivalent of game key cards in the past. You had the Star Wars Heritage Collection on the Switch 1 that has several of the games that you have to download, and it's essentially a key card for those games, but it does have some other physical games on the cartridge. And of course, Xbox has been producing discs that don't actually contain the game for a long time at this point. So certainly we should be used to the concept. Nintendo was nice enough to put it front and center on a box to let us know if we like physical games, if you're like me, then those are the games that you can avoid for Switch 2. At least at this point. When you see that little marker on there, you have a clear indication of what you're getting. And I like that part of it. But the situation may not be as grim for some other reasons that I haven't really heard anybody talking about. One of the things that is very apparent from all of the news sources is that the Switch 2 is only has two different types of cartridge produced at this point. They have either the key card, which appears to be under a gigabyte of data, and then they have the 64 gigabyte cartridge. And from all reports, it seems that there's quite a price tag and quite a cut that Nintendo is taking for all of the developers who want to produce these physical cartridges. So that has deterred some people, and of course some developers have gone full steam into the physical cartridge support and have even sat there and shown pride in being able to put a game like Cyberpunk along with its massive expansion all on one 64 gigabyte cartridge and allow people to buy the full game so that they can play it on their Switch. So while I fully applaud that, and I have of course pre-ordered my copy of it to support the developer, I understand that not all developers will be able to take this route. And it seems to me that the Switch 1 is essentially the pushed plan by Nintendo to allow people to continue on making these physical cartridges and doing so in a way that makes sense. What we haven't heard people talk about a whole lot is that there's an ability to play the Switch 1 cartridges in your Switch 2, and that we've already seen coding that supports capabilities far beyond the Switch 1 on a Switch 1 cartridge. When Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door came out, coders were quick to find that there was a 4K option buried in the code of that game cartridge. And that's for Switch 1, which doesn't support 4K. As it's been a year since this has come out, it really doesn't make sense for them to all of a sudden bring a 4K option to the Switch 1, if that's even possible. But the Switch 2 will certainly support 4K. My theory is that Paper Mario was our first real look at that because it was such a high-profile game. But I don't know how many other developers will start releasing some of these Switch 1 games that have the coding for Switch 2. We've already seen upgrade packs that costs as low as $3 and under. And that gives you all the capabilities for the Switch 2 can use on the Switch 1 cart. So I don't think that it's a far stretch to think that the developers will save some money, allow people to insert these cartridges, and essentially make a choice of which version they're going to be playing from. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, people are still going to have the option for these key cards, and you will be able to trade them into a GameStop. They offer certain benefits that just a code in a box doesn't have, but they're not going to be the same as having a physical cartridge. But I can see those Switch 1 cartridges starting to become a lot more popular. And if you remember back, the Switch 1 really came into its own when it started doing a lot of old retro stuff. I mean, honestly, they've reprinted almost the entire Wii U library in a better console, and they made a lot of money doing that. So to think that they'll stop, both Nintendo and all these third-party publishers, just stop making these collections of older games that we all enjoy so much, especially when you have these Switch 1 cartridges available where they can publish those, and for older games, it's really a no-brainer. You could add in the option to have some upgraded benefits and use it in a Switch 2, or you would be able to play it on the Switch 1 as well, which expands that life cycle of the Switch 1, and it appeals to that user base, which is already so much greater than almost any console that we've ever seen. And I feel like Nintendo's really eyeing the prize of trying to get that number one spot and really making a dent to where nobody will ever touch it. And some of the actual interviews from Nintendo staff have basically pointed people in the direction of purchasing a Switch 1. I don't think these moves were by accident. The 4K option on Paper Mario, the interviews that point people to having a Switch 1, I think the Switch 1 is more of an everyday option that will allow you to still have and enjoy these great games that they have. Whereas the Switch 2 will be meant more for the hardcore gamer. You can have your upgrades, but you don't have to. And that Switch 1 appeal is more of the Nintendo way. Now, there's plenty of people like me who are going to buy a Switch 2, and we're going to enjoy those upgraded features. But honestly, we may end up straying away from some of these game key cards to go back to the Switch 1 copies. And I could definitely see where Switch 1 cartridges start having all the benefits of the Switch 2 coded right into it, so that that's your fallback option. And that's why I think the game keycard situation really isn't as bad as people have blown it up to be. That's just my take on things, and I'm very grateful for all of you who have sat here and listened to me ramble about my thoughts and what I hope to be the future ahead of us, because I certainly would like to still have those options of physical cartridges available in one form or another. And if you liked what you heard and maybe it got you thinking a little bit, hit that like and subscribe button. Until next time, enjoy your Switch 2s.